I want to share with you an article called Trip West, and it takes place back in 1923, and I hope you'll enjoy this. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Thank you, computer. At any rate, I made my first trip west back in 1923 in my 1915 Model T touring car. Four of us planned to go, but when the time came in May 1923, I was the only one ready and willing. Being an auto mechanic, I gathered up my tools, camping outfit, shotgun, fishing rods, and westward I went, taking my grandfather to Cornersville, Indiana, for his yearly visit, and I started there to St. Louis. Over a red clay road during a hard rain, and after getting stuck about 4 times, I made Kansas City about 15 hours later, June 10th, 1923. After camping outside Kansas City in my tent, I headed for Denver through the towns of Larned and Dodge City, and camped at Lamar, Colorado. At Denver, I stayed a week with friends and visited Starbuck. They didn't have Starbucks back then. Mount Estes, Pikes Peak, Buffalo Bill's grave, actually, too. The 1st of July found me camping in famed Medicine Bow, Wyoming, and next day heading for Salt Lake City, where I camped in an old ballpark for a weekend and visited the Mormon Temple and Museum. From Salt Lake, I moved south through the desert, where the temperatures reached a phenomenal 120 degrees in the shade, and if you could find any, that was. Camped that night near the Continental Divide, about 7,000 feet. Next day, I drove through Las Vegas, not like today, and continued to Los Angeles, where I found a job as a mechanic with the Earl C. Anthony Packard Motors. After 4 months, I became homesick, and I made ready to come back to Kentucky. At our boarding house were 31 people, all from different states, and when I told them I was leaving, 3 decided to come back with me. They were from Alabama, Illinois, and Ohio. As 2 worked with me at the garage, my boss did not like it and told me so, but they made up their minds, not me. September 12th, we loaded our grips, tools, tent, and our food box in this 8-year-old Ford and headed back to old Kentucky. How this old Ford did it was wonderful. 4 men, plus tools, grips, tent, food, dishes, 5 gallons of gas, water, oil, and about 100 pounds of petrified rock picked up on the way from the Grand Canyon and Painted Desert. Leaving the canyon, we crossed the divide at 8,500 feet near Quemado, New Mexico, came through Albuquerque, Apache Canyon, Wagon Mound towards Springfield, Missouri, and St. Louis, and we had to use a ferry crossing the Missouri, Mississippi, and Arkansas River. We arrived in Louisville October 2nd. My entire trip was around 10,000 miles, using almost 3 sets of tires, though the ones I arrived home on were in good shape. The only mechanical trouble was installing transmission bands in New Mexico on the way back, and it was a wonderful trip and worth $1 million in memories alone. That's the article. Can you imagine what it was like driving back in those days? I mean, we don't really think about it with our roads today, but roads, most of them weren't even paved back then, and to drive over a dirt road, an uncared for dirt road, after it had rained bad, you must have got stuck all the time. It must have been an adventure every time you struck out to just to go to town, let alone across country. Well, I hope you enjoyed this look back, this trip west that this young man made. His name, by the way, was Karl Jockell, and I thank Karl for sharing those memories. And God bless each and every one of you, and have a great night.